I think the bipartisan request of Chairman Warner and Vice Chairman Rubio is entirely reasonable. What they're asking for here would not interfere with these ongoing criminal investigations. And I hope the administration will come up with a better answer than no.
There was Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell slamming the Biden administration and the Department of Justice for stonewalling congressional investigators from looking into President Biden's document scandal. Who has these documents? Where are they now? And what do they say? Fox News is now learning that the FBI did conduct a second search of the Penn Biden Center back in mid-November, shortly after the first batch of classified documents were discovered there. Now, at that point, the public did not even know about this because they knew before the election but did not release it until way after the election in January. It's unclear if any classified documents were found in that second search. Joining us right now is Utah Congressman, member of the House Intelligence and Appropriations Committees, Chris Stewart. Congressman, it's good to see you this morning. Thanks very much for being here. Is there a tie between the document gross negligence that Joe Biden has committed to Hunter Biden and his influence peddling?
Well, I don't think it's a huge stretch of imagination to think that there would be, and in fact, there's evidence that there was. As I think you and others have reported, there's some incredible similarities between some of the reports and some of the memos that Hunter Biden wrote and some classified documents. But the problem is, Maria, we don't know. And the reason we don't know is because the Director of National Intelligence Administration has refused to tell us anything. And, we're not asking to interfere with the investigation. Of course we're not. But all through the special counsel of President Trump, they still released information. They still provided us with briefings. And all we want to know is what was in the documents? What are the national security implications? What things should we be concerned about? But so far, they've told us, as you know, absolutely nothing, which is very, very consistent with the way they've treated us for a long time about a lot of issues.
Well, I mean, what are you going to do about it? You're an elected official, sir. I know that the Senate Intelligence Committee went to Avril Haines and said, look, we need to know what these documents are. Are they about China? Are they about Ukraine? We need to understand if these are national security threats. Now, your committee in the House also went to the DNI asking for more information. We know that there's a ton of documents. There's 1,850 boxes of documents at the University of Delaware. Never mind the University of Pennsylvania. We've got 415 gigabytes of electronic records at the Delaware, the alma mater of President Biden. But she's telling you to go pound sand. Okay? You're not going to know what these documents are. You've heard her answer. What are you going to do about all of this stonewalling?
Well, we just don't accept that, and we won't accept that. And we're going to continue to push, and we're going to subpoena if necessary. And the thing is the FBI and the Department of Justice, and now the Director of National Intelligence has said again and again and again, well, we can't talk about ongoing investigations. Well, once again, that's nonsense. They have done that in the past. They did it all through the Trump administration. They answered our questions and they gave us information, especially regarding national security. And there's a difference here, Maria. We're not asking about the criminal intent or the criminal investigation. We're asking about national security implications. We're asking about what do we need to do to protect ourselves if this information is released. It's an entirely different question.
Yeah.
And again, we're not going to accept, well, no, we're not going to tell you. And if it requires a subpoena and a subpoena under oath, I think that's probably where we'll end up doing.
Will they blow off your subpoena? Can you hold them in contempt? And how far are you going to dig into this Biden laptop and the evidence on that laptop that indicates influence peddling? That Hunter Biden was pocketing money. He wanted money from Alcoa, for God's sakes, so that he could give Alcoa information about a Russian oligarch. He wanted money from Ukraine, China, Kazakhstan. What are you going to do about that in the Intelligence Committee?
Well, 2 points about what you said. Number one is he wanted money, and he got money in an area of the world that he knew absolutely nothing about. And yet there are documents that he supposedly wrote that indicate great background, great deep knowledge of that area. And there's no way in the world, in my opinion, he wrote those documents. He clearly had a source or some help doing it and probably just pasted and copied it from another document.
Right. So here he is cutting and pasting information from classified documents and sending it to his business partners so that they could make money on it.
There's one other important point, though, and that is, 10 years ago, there was a subpoena and a contempt of Congress for Eric Holder that was completely ignored. But the January 6th committee changed that. And the Department of Justice changed that, because those who were held in contempt of Congress found themselves facing legal liability, found themselves facing prison, as you know. And I think that sets a precedent that we're going to follow now. Okay, if that's the rules of engagement that the Department of Justice has implemented in the past year, then we expect them to be consistent now when we find someone in contempt of Congress because they ignore our subpoena.
Well, it's quite extraordinary what has taken place here. There's been an investigation of Hunter Biden, apparently, for 5+ years. So what's going on with that investigation? Why are they slow walking the investigation?
Well, the answer to that is very clear, and that is what we've seen again and again and again, and that is there is a double standard. There is a rule of law for someone like you and I, and then a rule of law for these people.
Wow.
And it's evident in the Mar-a-Lago raid. I mean, we've made this case very apparent, but they show up with what, 30+ agents and 24, SUVs with their lights flashing, and they go through everything. Then they stage this photograph where they throw these classified documents on the floor and act like that's how they found them, versus, as we now know, the Biden Center, where they told no one.
Right.
And they showed up there with 1 or 2 agents and they kept it very secret.
Yeah.
I mean, again, the hypocrisy of this is just impossible to ignore.
What
and
a
we see
joke.
it with the Hunter Biden investigation.
I mean, can Merrick Garland now indict Donald Trump? Doesn't he have a problem on his hands if he tries to indict Donald Trump?
Oh my gosh, can you imagine? I mean, I just think I think it's probably practically and politically impossible now.
Yeah. Okay.
Unless he's going to indict President of the United States as well.
That's right. Congressman, I'm going to switch gears. I want to ask you about TikTok. I know that you have a bill that would ban social media nationwide for kids under 16 years old. You're still building support before bringing that bill to the floor. We heard yesterday, officials saying that 13 is even too young. Tell me about that, and also about TikTok, and whether or not we're going to see a full ban of TikTok in America.
Well, we should. And let me address TikTok first, because it's just simple. Look, this is manipulation and collection of information and surveillance by the Chinese Communist Party, and everyone knows it. And it should be banned. And if anyone's on TikTok, then please know that everything you do is going to be monitored and collected and stored by the Chinese Party. But more broadly now, Maria, I mean, I know you appreciate this. We have got a generation of the most depressed, the most anxious, and the most suicidal young people that we've ever had. And it's not even close. I mean, a frightening statistic, nearly 1/3 of our children around age 14 have contemplated suicide and discussed how they would commit suicide with a friend. And we know that a lot of that is because of the social media and the time they spend on social media. It just destroys young people's sense of self-worth and their sense of hope for the future. And we protect kids from alcohol, we protect them from smoking, we don't allow them to drive when they're 12. Why are we allowing 9, 10, 11, and 12-year-olds to go and spend 5 to 8 hours a day, which is the U.S. average, on social media, and just ignore the enormous emotional costs they have because of that?
You make a great point, a really important point. I don't know why we don't go back to when I was a kid. Go play some stickball, okay? Get out. Go take a walk. Play manhunt. We used to play manhunt. I loved it.
Was huge.
Manhunt was huge.
Capture the flag also.
Congressman, it's good to see you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, Chris Stewart in D.C. this morning. Quick break, and then all eyes on the Federal Reserve today.